20 crazy coincidences you won't believe happened. Number 1. The unsinkable Hugh Williams. In 1660, a ship sank in the Straits of Dover. The only survivor was noted to be Hugh Williams. In 1767, another ship sank in the same waters. 127 lost their lives. The only survivor was noted to be Hugh Williams. In 1820, a picnic boat capsized on the Thames. There was one survivor, Hugh Williams. In 1940, a British trawler was destroyed by a German mine. Only 2 men survived, one man and his nephew. They were both called Hugh Williams. I totally gonna name my kid Hugh Williams. Number 2. 33607. This runner's hometown zip code is 33607, and the race number they assigned him was also the same. But guess what? The t-shirt he wore that day featured the same number. But it gets creepier. Check out his finishing time. 3. Twin brothers. In 2002, a man was hit by a truck in Finland as he was trying to cross Highway 8 on his bike. 2 hours later, his twin brother was also hit by a truck while trying to cross Highway 8 on his bike. They died within 1.5 kilometers of each other 2 hours apart. 4. Lost and found. A fisherman dropped his wallet in Lake Achensee, Austria. Of course, he couldn't find it in the massive lake, so he had to replace everything inside and buy a new wallet. 20 years later, he was still fishing at the same lake. All of a sudden, he fished off his old wallet and all of the things in it in one of his fish nets. Despite losing it 20 years ago, many of the things were still in good condition, including the paper money. The coins had all rusted away, but his ID were still intact. It's unbelievable the amount of protection his leather wallet gave to it. 5. The man who survived 2 atomic bombs. Tsutomu Yamaguchi was on a business trip in Hiroshima, Japan when the United States dropped an atomic bomb on the city in August 1945. Despite being 3 kilometers from the blast zone, he was temporarily blinded and suffered horrific burns over the top half of his body. But he was alive. The following morning, he braved the radiation to catch a train back home and to the site of the second atomic bomb, Nagasaki. When the city was targeted 2 days later, Yamaguchi once again found himself within 3 kilometers of ground zero, somehow escaping further injury. Despite the double radiation exposure, Yamaguchi lived to be 93. He passed away in 2010 from stomach cancer. 6. Taylor Swift. Maybe you think of highways as some of the most boring places in the world, but one observant driver noticed something funny. 2 trucks were driving right next to each other in front of them. Normally this would annoy drivers, but it actually made him laugh. That is because on the back of one of the trucks it said Taylor and the other said Swift. This is a crazy coincidence that happened. Someone really needs to frame this and send it to Taylor Swift. 7. Ohio drivers. In Ohio during the year of 1895, cars were rare, with multiple car crashes being non-existent. This was because during that year, car production was only just starting to take off with only 2 cars in the whole state of Ohio. The bizarre coincidence is that the only 2 cars in the whole state managed to run into one another. What do you think is the chance of that happening? 8. Falling baby. In 1937, a man named Joseph Figlock from Detroit was walking down the street when a baby fell out of a window from the building above and landed on top of him. Both Figlock and the baby were unharmed, and the mother was extremely grateful that Figlock had just saved her child's life. 1 year later, Figlock was again out walking along the same street when the same baby fell onto him from the same window. As before, both Figlock and the baby were unharmed, and the mother was once again very grateful. If you lived in Detroit in the 1930s and you threw your baby out, Mr. Joseph Figlock was going to be there to save your day. 9. Twin tragedy. In 1975, a 17-year-old boy was killed while riding his scooter in Bermuda. He was killed exactly a year after his 17-year-old brother was killed while riding the same scooter in the same intersection by the same taxi with the same driver carrying the same passenger. 10. Hoovered Dam. Around 100 people died during the dam's construction. The first fatality occurred when a federal surveyor named J.G. Tierney fell into the Colorado River and drowned while surveying the dam site in 1922. The final fatality in the Hoovered Dam project came 13 years to the day later when the man's son, Patrick Tierney, fell from an intake tower and drowned. 11. The separated twins. A set of twins from Ohio who were separated at birth grew up without any knowledge of each other's existence. Their lives did, however, share a number of strange similarities. They were both named James on their adoptions, they both grew up to be police officers, and both of them married a woman named Linda. But that's not all. Each had a son, one named James Allen and the other one named James Allen, and each also had a dog named Toy. Both brothers later got divorced and both ended up remarrying a woman named Betty. 12. Laura Bergson. A 10-year-old girl named Laura Bergson released a balloon with her name and address on it, which floated 140 miles and landed in the backyard of a house where also lived a 10-year-old girl named Laura Bergson. On the day of meeting, the two girls wore essentially the same outfits. They both had 3-year-old black Labrador retrievers at home as well as gray pet rabbits. They both brought their guinea pigs, which were the same color and even had the same orange markings on their hindquarters. It was almost as though these two Laura Bergsons were the same person. 13. The Girl from Troca. The British actor Anthony Hopkins was delighted to hear that he had landed a leading role in a film based on the book The Girl from Troca by George Fever. A few days after signing the contract, Hopkins traveled to London to buy a copy of the book. He tried several bookshops, but there wasn't one to be had. Waiting at the Leicester Square Underground for his train home, he noticed the book apparently discarded on a bench. Incredibly, it was The Girl from Troca. 2 years later, in the middle of filming Vienna, Hopkins was visited by George Fever, the author. Fever mentioned that he did not have a copy of his own book. He had lent the last one, containing his own annotations, to a friend who had lost it somewhere in London. 14. Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe, an acclaimed horror writer, wrote the book The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym in the 19th century, which was about 4 shipwreck survivors who are stuck in an open boat for days before they decide to kill and eat the cabin boy, Richard Parker. Years later, in 1884, the yawl Mignot foundered and left only 4 survivors who were stuck in an open boat for many days. The 3 other crew members killed and ate the cabin boy. And you will never guess what his name is. That's right, Richard Parker. 15. 3 strangers on a train. In the 1920s, 3 Englishmen were traveling separately by train through Peru. At the time of their introduction, there were the only 3 men in the railroad car. Their introductions were more surprising than they could have imagined. One man's last name was Bingham, and the second man's last name was Powell. The third man announced that his last name was Bingham Powell. None were related in any way. And now, 5 photos of hilarious coincidences taken at the right moment. Tell us the most amazing coincidence that ever happened to you. Don't forget to hit the like button and click subscribe to join us. Thanks for watching.